There's something about the silence of a lake at night that feels wrong. It's too still, like the water is holding its breath, waiting for something beneath it to wake up. Welcome, guys, to the Dead History channel. In today's issue, I will share 3 true, terrifying stories about fishing trips that turned into living nightmares. Fairy tales remind us that some things lurking in the dark water should have never been disturbed. But before we start, please subscribe, turn on the bell icon, like this video, and comment below. Don't miss the next story. Stay until the end, because the ending will truly shock you. I used to think fishing was peaceful. That kind of quiet that clears your mind, until last summer. Now, the sound of rippling water makes me sick to my stomach. It started on a Friday evening. My friend Caleb and I had driven out to a remote lake about an hour north of town. Locals called it Miller's Lake, though. According to an old man at the gas station, that wasn't its real name. He said the place had been renamed decades ago after something bad happened there. Caleb just laughed it off. We were young, bored, and the idea of night fishing sounded exciting. The lake was surrounded by dense pine forests. No cabins, no lights, just the chirping of crickets and the dull hum of insects. By 9 p.m., we had set up near the dock, our lines cast deep into the black water. The air smelled like wet wood and algae. Caleb cracked open a beer and said, "Man, this is perfect. No noise, no people." But that peace didn't last. Around 10:30, I noticed something strange. The water started to move, softly at first, like something was gliding beneath the surface. Caleb said it was probably a catfish, but it didn't move like a fish. It moved in a circle, slow, deliberate, then stopped. The ripples spread across the dock, lapping at the wood-like fingers. "Did you see that?" I asked. Caleb just shrugged, though I saw his expression tighten. Minutes later, his line jerked. He grinned, reeling hard, but whatever was on the hook wasn't fighting. It was pulling. The rod bent like it was about to snap. Caleb dug in his heels, laughing nervously. "It's a monster, dude. Get the net." Then the line went slack. Caleb cursed, thinking it snapped, but when he reeled it in, the hook was gone. The end of the line was frayed, torn. It didn't look like it broke. It looked bitten through. He decided to cast again, stubborn as always. I told him maybe we should pack it up. Something felt off, like the air itself had changed. The forest had gone silent. Not a single cricket. No frogs. Nothing. Then came the splash. It wasn't far from the dock. A heavy, deep plunge. Caleb froze. "Maybe a beaver," I said, though my voice cracked. But when we looked toward the ripples, we saw something, a pale shape drifting just beneath the surface. It looked like an arm. "Jesus Christ," Caleb whispered. We both leaned forward, the wood creaking beneath us. Then the arm moved. Nope. The water churned violently, sending cold spray into our faces. Caleb stumbled back, and before I could react, something yanked his line again hard. He screamed as his rod flew from his hands into the dark water. Then came another sound, a low gurgle, like something exhaling through the lake itself. I grabbed my flashlight and aimed it at the water. The beam shook, but for a split second, I saw it, a figure rising just below the surface, gray and bloated, its eyes open and glassy, hair floating like weeds. I dropped the light. "We're leaving." Now, Caleb didn't move. He was staring, transfixed. Then his foot slipped, and he fell in. The splash was enormous. I shouted his name, shining the flashlight back into the water, but all I could see were bubbles. Then silence. No thrashing. No screams. Just gone. I called the police as soon as I got back to the car. Shaking so hard, I dropped my phone twice. They searched the area all night, but found nothing. 2 days later, they pulled Caleb's body from the far end of the lake. The coroner said he'd drowned, but something about it didn't sit right. His expression was frozen in pure terror, eyes wide, mouth open, and his fingernails were filled with mud, like he'd been trying to claw his way out of something. After the funeral, I went back to the gas station to talk to the old man again. He looked at me with his heavy, tired stare and said, "You shouldn't have fished there. Miller's Lake ain't what it seems. That water doesn't like to give back what it takes." He told me about the original name of the Lake Hollow Pond. Back in the 1950s, a whole family drowned there under strange circumstances. Locals said they heard screams coming from the water for weeks afterward. Sometimes, at night, the lake would bubble like something breathing underneath. Sometimes, a fisherman would vanish, and sometimes, something climbed out. I never went back, but every now and then, when I can't sleep, I hear it, the sound of rippling water and that faint, hollow exhale. And I swear, if I listen closely enough, it whispers my name. People always say fishing brings peace of mind, but sometimes the quiet isn't peace, it's a warning. And sometimes what you pull from the water isn't a fish. It happened in early spring, about 3 years ago. I'd rented a small cabin near a lake called Stone Creek Reservoir. It wasn't really a creek, and definitely not a reservoir. More like a massive, still body of water surrounded by mist and pine trees. It was the off-season. So no tourists, no fishermen, not even the occasional hiker. Just me and the water. I'd gone there to clear my head after a bad breakup. You know, the kind that makes everything else in life feel muted. The idea of a weekend with no cell signal and nothing but fishing sounded like the therapy I needed. The first day was calm. I sat on the wooden dock, cast my line, and watched the clouds roll over the dark surface. By sunset, fog started to creep over the lake. This thick, heavy mist that swallowed everything beyond a few feet. It felt alive somehow, like it was watching me. When I finally packed up my things, I could have sworn I heard someone walking along the opposite shore. Slow, deliberate steps, followed by a splash. But when I shined my flashlight, there was nothing. That night, I had trouble sleeping. The cabin was old, with wooden walls that creaked every time the wind moved through the cracks. At around 2 a.m., I woke up to a soft, dripping sound. I thought it was the sink, but when I got up, the noise was coming from the window. Outside, something was dripping from the roof. Thick, dark streaks sliding down the glass. It wasn't rain. When I opened the door to check, the air smelled metallic. Blood. I stepped out slowly, flashlight shaking in my hand, and that's when I noticed the ground near the dock wet footprints. Bare. Human. They led from the lake right up to my cabin door, and then stopped. My first thought was that someone was playing a prank, maybe a local messing with the city guy who rented their lake cabin. But the next morning, when I checked the dock, my fishing gear was gone. Every hook, every rod, even the bait bucket, all gone. The only thing left was my tackle box, lying open with water pooled inside, as if someone had dipped it underwater and set it back. And in that water, there were fish eyes. Juist die eyes. Dozens of them, staring up. That's when I decided I was leaving. But before I could pack, I heard an engine, an old truck rolling up the dirt path. It was the owner of the cabin, a tall man in his 60s named Harold. He noticed the footprints right away and went pale. "You saw it, didn't you?" he asked. I told him what happened, still half expecting him to laugh. But he didn't. Instead, he looked toward the lake and said quietly, "You shouldn't have come here alone." He told me that years ago, there used to be a fishing community here. About a dozen cabins, all owned by locals. One spring, a storm hit, and a man named Paul went missing while fishing after dark. They searched for days and finally found his boat drifting near the center of the lake, but no body. After that, strange things started happening. Fishermen would find their lines tangled with shredded clothes, or their bait replaced with human teeth. Sometimes, people would see a figure standing waist-deep in the lake, unmoving, staring toward the cabins. "Most of the folks left," Harold said, "but I stayed. Guess I got used to the silence." Then he looked at me again. "But that silence ain't normal, son. When the lake gets too quiet, that's when he's closest." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what he said. I packed my things and decided I'd leave first thing in the morning. But around midnight, the sound of dripping returned. This time, it wasn't coming from the roof. It was coming from inside. When I turned toward the sound, I froze. Water was seeping out from under the door. The air grew icy cold. I could hear breathing, not mine. Low, slow, wet. The doorknob began to turn. I grabbed my flashlight, heart hammering. The beam flickered weakly, but in that brief pulse of light, I saw something moving behind the window. A figure completely soaked its skin, hanging in strips, one side of its face gone, and where its eyes should have been were fish eyes, hundreds of them, glimmering faintly in the dark. The door burst open with a sound like wood snapping. I fell backward, hitting the floor, water rushing over my shoes. For a moment, I saw it. The drowned man, bloated and gray, his body warped and twisted as if the water itself was holding him together. He reached toward me, and I swear I heard the sound of gurgling, like something trying to speak underwater. Then everything went black. When he woke up, it was morning. The door was open. The floor was dry. There were no footprints, no sign of water, and my gear was back where I'd left it, neatly arranged, as if nothing had happened. For a second, I wondered if I'd imagined it all. I left that morning without looking back. A few weeks later, I called Harold to check in, just to make sure I hadn't lost my mind. But his wife answered. She told me Harold had gone missing 2 days after I left. His truck was still there. His boat was found drifting near the same spot where Paul had vanished years ago. They never found his body. Now, every time it rains, I hear it again. That slow, steady dripping. And once, when I was walking home past a pond near my neighborhood, I caught a reflection in the water that wasn't mine. It looked like a man, gray, bloated, staring up from below the surface. I blinked, and he was gone. But the ripples kept spreading, as if something had just gone under again. There's something different about rivers. Unlike lakes, they move, they breathe. And when a river decides it wants something, it takes Italiano. This story happened back in 2014, when I worked as a wildlife photographer for a small magazine in Oregon. Most of my assignments were harmless: deer, birds, the occasional bear sighting. But one day, my editor asked me to cover a local legend near a place called Reddington River. Locals said the river was cursed, that every few years, a fisherman disappeared, and that the current there didn't just pull you under. It held on to you. I wasn't superstitious, but I loved a good story. So, I packed my gear and drove out early that morning. Reddington wasn't much a small town, population maybe 200. The river ran right behind it, wide and glassy, bordered by tall black pines that reflected perfectly on its surface. It looked harmless, peaceful even. But when I got out of the car, the first thing I noticed was the smell not of water or trees, but of iron. Old, dry blood. At a diner near the bridge, I met an old fisherman named Russell. He was wiry, gray-bearded, and wore a red flannel that looked older than me. When I mentioned I was photographing the river, he gave me a long, hollow stare. "You think you're taking pictures of the water?" he said quietly. "But the river takes pictures of you." I laughed awkwardly. "What's that supposed to mean?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pointed toward the far bank, where the water curved out of sight. "Stay away from that bend," he said. "That's where it's deepest. The ones that went missing, that's where they vanished, every single one." That evening, I set up my tripod near the shallows, away from the bend, just like he'd said. The sun dipped low, painting the water orange and gold. The sound of the current was strangely hypnotic. He almost didn't notice how quiet everything else had become. No birds, no insects, not even the rustle of trees. As darkness settled, I started hearing a faint sound over the water. At first, I thought it was frogs or wind. But no, it was singing. A soft, low humming that came from downstream. I moved closer, my flashlight cutting through the mist rising off the surface. The humming grew louder. Then I saw something, a small fishing boat drifting slowly against the current. No one was rowing. The oars lay still inside, the line dangling in the water. "Hello!" I called out. No answer. I walked along the bank, following the boat's slow drift until it bumped against the rocks near my feet. When I leaned closer, my breath caught. The inside of the boat was soaked in water, but not clear water. It was red, and on the seat there were scratches. Deep ones, like fingernails. The singing stopped. I looked up, and there, standing waist-deep in the water across the river, was a man. At least, I thought it was a man. He was pale, impossibly still, staring right at me. His eyes reflected light like a cat's, and when he tilted his head, I realized his mouth wasn't closed. It was wide open, as if he'd been screaming underwater for too long. I stumbled backward, falling onto the rocks. When I looked up again, he was gone. The next morning, I went back into town to tell the sheriff what I'd seen. He listened quietly, then sighed. "You're not the first to say that," he said. He told me about a boy named Aaron who'd gone missing 2 weeks earlier while fishing with his father. They found the boat's same spot, same scratches. The father swore he saw someone in the water, pulling it away. The sheriff showed me photos from the search. The water line near that bend was filled with strange drag marks, almost like hands clawing at the mud. I left Reddington that day. I didn't even finish my assignment, but the river wasn't done with me. A few weeks later, back home, I developed the photos. Most were normal trees, water, light reflections, but one frame stopped me cold. It was the shot I'd taken near dusk, before the boat appeared. In the fort, I was standing by the shore, and in the water behind me, something was standing up. A dark, human shape, and though the figure was blurred, its mouth was open in that same silent scream. That night, I woke to the sound of rushing water, like a river running under my floor. When I turned on the light, I saw wet footprints leading from my front door to my bed. They stopped right beside me. I moved out the next morning. I don't photograph water anymore. But sometimes, when it rains, I still hear it. That low, distant humming from the river, like it's calling me back. And last month, I got a letter, no return address. Just a piece of paper inside, soaked and wrinkled. One line, written in red ink. Or maybe not ink at all. It said, "The river remembers you." If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Remember, these stories aren't just legends. They're warnings. When you're out there alone, under the moonlight, near water that looks to still listen carefully. Because sometimes, it listens back. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Dead History, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss another episode. And let me know in the comments, have you ever experienced something strange while fishing or camping near water? Your story might be the next one we tell. Good night, and stay out of the dark water.